Hey guys, my name is Chantel.
And I'm Damien Diaz.
Also, Lizette Mendoza is a part of our group, but she couldn't make it today. But she sent in her information, so we'll provide you guys with that.
And nonetheless, we're going to be going over how people such as the average Joe, how can they be easily influenced from drug and alcohol, and how the people who have the most influence in set drugs and alcohol can affect them.
Okay, so what comes first is social construction. So basically, a social construct is a value, idea, notion, or view that appears to be natural and obvious to people who comply within a society. So basically, with that being said, I would just like to point out a few young actors in our society today who have abused drugs, like as teens. Starting with Jodie Sweetin, aka Michelle, one of Full House stars, along with the Olsen twins. We all know them. Basically, Jodie Sweetin started using meth because she was bored. After Full House ended, she basically didn't have anything to do, so she got into drugs. In the first stage of this social problem, it was basically making her private issue public, which meant telling the world that she was on drugs, as well as the Olsen twins, letting the world know that they were partaking in drugs. Um, and that news left like Full House fans very disappointed, as well as the parents became angry because their children looked up to these women as role models. Following stage two, the sorry, I did it again. Following stage two, the legitimization process, which is trying to convince the public that its claims about the problems are legitimate. For example, Jodie Sweetin confirmed her drug and alcohol abuse before going into rehab. Next is stage three, which means social change groups conclude that government actions is too limited in goals or scope to be able to address the social problem. For instance, the cast of Full House responded to the media fairly well when it came to Jodie Sweetin and the Olsen twins' drug abuse. Like, they were like very supportive, they didn't like try to bash them or anything
Yeah,
like
because
that.
think about it. What if they bashed them? That could have been had an ill effect. Maybe they would have just cut contact, or maybe not even continue to do the show.
Right. Well, I know the Olsen twins, they never came back, but they have a Fuller House now, and Jodie Sweetin is on it. Like, she's not on drugs. She looks really
Yeah.
good. So, yeah. So moving on to stage four, the radical change. That means social groups develop their own strategies for addressing the social problem. For example, there were a ton of fans that spoke out about how sad it was for these young women to get addicted to drugs and how different the public viewed them now. So,
And to back some of this claims up, we have some research and data that we took. Chantel, could go further into that?
okay, so I actually got research and data on a few different topics dealing with drugs and alcohol since it's such a broad field. First and foremost, I would like to address drug and alcohol abuse amongst doctors. According to further research, I have discovered that doctors are prone to drug and alcohol abuse. The estimated rate addiction for physicians start at 10% and rises to 15%. Consequently, it is easier for them to abuse drugs since they have like unlimited access to them. That's what I was telling you. Like, they have
Yeah.
unlimited access to these drugs, so they could just get it when they want.
Yeah. Think what happened to Michael Jackson. That's how he died.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. So, an earlier study in 2013 revealed that 69% of doctors abuse prescription medication. Like, that's crazy. Also, a 2014 review published in the Medical Student Research Journal stated that physicians have a higher rate of prescription drug abuse than the general population, which is pretty mind blowing to me because these are the people that are like being trusted with the medicine, and they are like kind of taking advantage of their positions as doctors, you
And,
know?
and think about it, it kind of makes sense if you give this guy not pretty much an unlimited quote unquote access to this borderline free drugs. I think the odds of them taking it are
Pretty
pretty
high,
high. Yeah.
right? That's why I was saying, like, I think they should go through the same obstacles that we go through to get prescription medication. Like, they shouldn't be able just to write themselves a prescription, or they
Yeah.
shouldn't be able just to grab some pills and take them. Like, they shouldn't be able to do that. So next, I would like to elaborate on the drug use happening in high school. My information is mainly going to target 12th graders. So 60% abuse alcohol, 39.5% abuse illicit drugs, 35% abuse hash and marijuana, which is crazy to me because I thought this particular drug was going to be like high, like the rate was going to be super high, and it's not. 15% uses any prescription drugs that they could get their hands on. 5% uses narcotics other than heroin. 3.5% uses hallucination drugs. 3% indulge in MDMA, like Molly's and ecstasy, stuff like that. 2.5% use cocaine, and the last 0.5 uses heroin. Lastly, I did research as to why teens abuse drugs and alcohol, and the charts and graphs stated that 50% do it just to have fun, 48% do it to relax, 45% do it just to feel good, 37% does it to forget about their troubles, 36% does it just to experiment, 33% does it to because they're bored, they want to relieve boredom, 30% does it to deal with pressures and stress from their school life. 29% peer pressures to fit in with their friends. 27% is to deal with the problems that they have at home. So, like, to sum it all up, in the medical field, the drug abuse is mainly because the doctors and physicians have full access to the drugs. And as far as teens, they're just doing this because they want to have fun.
Yeah, even if on the radical end, like cocaine, like I'm not gonna lie, I get weed or liquor or whatever, but like you gonna tell me that almost a third of people, let's say, like they just take cocaine for just it's borderline
For the
dumb
hell of
reasons,
it.
just yeah.
They want to have fun.
Like, this isn't the '90s anymore, you know?
I know. That's what the girl from Full House, Jodie Sweetin, she said she started doing crystal meth because she was bored because the show ended. Like, what the hell? Go invest in something. Like, come on now.
It's crazy how institutionally we kind of let that happen. Like we got to look at. We kind of got to look both the good and the bad when it comes to institutions. For example, let's look at some of the good treatment. There's of course treatment plans for drug users, and when I mean by drug, I'm talking about both alcohol and any kind of narcotics out there, because alcohol at the end of the day is a suppressant. So of course, they got treatment plans for for drug users. This may include groups as AA. Think of how many people go to Alcoholics Anonymous to fight this issue.
Is that an outpatient type of thing? The AA?
I don't know. I know it's sometimes it's court mandated. Like let's say you got into driving under the influence. A judge might say, hey, you have to go to 3 months of AA.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people just go themselves, even if they don't have, if not being forced to. And there's other individuals such as to get this help they can go through a psychiatrist or even a psychologist. Most of the time it's psychiatrists because they are the ones who know all about these prescription drugs, right? Or it could be a combination of both. Like there's in a lot of rehab centers, they got psychiatrists, they got meetings for AA, they got group activities, and pretty much I see it as more distractions, but they do want to help. But there are groups who treat drug and alcohol addiction of a more of a disease rather than like it's because they want to or they're lazy or they just want to do it. Most people see since a lot of people see it as a problem, something that you can treat. More people are inclined to help these people who fall into the addiction.
Right. But they're helping them, but they're also like hindering them by giving them this drug. Like, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because sometimes I don't know the full details of it, but withdrawal centers say someone's on I got this real problem with meth. They'll go to them and they'll give them little doses
of meth.
I don't know of the drug that they're addicted on.
Are you serious?
Yes.
So
the premise is you don't take them away, because then they're gonna go through heavy withdrawal. The point is to try to slowly get them to take less and less and weave them off of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this in turn lowers the seriousness of these addicts, which can help them more, because if they don't see these addicts as some kind of threat, more people are inclined to help, and for them, they want to seek more help. But yet there's also institutions at the same time who kind of, play off of addicts' weakness to their dependencies. For example, pharmaceutical companies have borderline monopolies on prescription drugs that people need, and thus they can make the price whatever they want. Right. For example, I don't know if you know, Chantel, but there's a guy named Martin Shkreli. There was this HIV medicine where it was called a Daraprim. It was $14. If you had HIV, you take it. It helps treat you.
Pretty much, get rid of it or keep it stable?
Not get rid of it, but keep it. You can treat it. Keep it stable. Have it so you can actually live your life. Okay. Kind of deal. So they need it. The problem is this guy, since he pretty much owns all the monopolies on there, he made it overnight $750.
What?
Yeah. And what can people do? They can't do anything. They need it. Yeah. It's like, making gas whatever price you want. Like you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, because you gotta get around, right?
And that's the problem with some of these pharmaceutical companies, because at the end of the day, like, what are you going to spend more effort on? Trying to change it or trying to get this medicine so you can survive?
Trying to get the medicine so you can survive.
And this creates a shift in inequality, because think about it. Let's put two scenarios. Let's say there's someone who's impoverished, someone who's rich. Both have HIV, right? The person who's rich
is going to live way
They're
longer.
not going to care. Oh, right. $750 is pocket change. Right. But someone who's impoverished...
Like, oh my God, I'm just going to die.
What are they going to do? They're going to die. They might break into these, pharmaceutical companies, or, commit crimes. And I don't blame them. And when it comes to, alcohol more, let's look away from prescription drugs. I've observed that people tend to have a less issue of it. They only have a huge issue in regards to if someone who's too young taking it, or they abuse it, like they're drunk at 7 in the morning, or they're driving, or they're operating heavy machinery, right? But of course, many groups such as AA seek to help people conflict with their addiction. But we got to look at it like this. There's both the good and the bad, but we have to think of it as something more regional. Let's say a struggling alcoholic is in a low-income area, such as, here, San Bernardino. For those of you who live in San Bernardino, let's compare this to, like, Rancho Cucamonga. Okay?
There's no comparison. It's so nice out there.
And think about it like this. If you're an alcoholic, think of how many drugstores you pass just to get to here at Valley. Think about it. I counted like 5 on the way here. I maybe find 1, 2 if that at Rancho when I'm driving around. So people who are more more targeted, who are more alcoholics, and if they're living in this area, they're in a way being targeted.
Yeah, because it's a liquor store on every corner.
It's a constant reminder.
Yep. Yep.
And think about it like this. You think someone who lives in a rich neighborhood has to deal with this?
No, they don't have liquor stores on every corner. Yeah, of course not.
Exactly. And then we other than the whole institutional wise, we got to see how there's a pop culture issue. For example, the pop.
Wait, not to cut you off. I'm so sorry. Right, that's fine. The pop culture was the information came from Lizette Mendoza, and Damien is gonna read it for her because she couldn't make it today.
Yes. But this is all from her. She says that pop culture, of course, is the popular lifestyle that society faces and accepts, the forms of behaviors that are normal within the community. The general view is that pop culture is a useful representation of society and the dominant setting. And because pop culture is the culture that is followed by the majority and represents society. Pop culture is all about people in the society as a whole. This determines and controls the mainstream representatives of society's expectations and fears. It is so instilled in our lives that we systematically forget how important it is to our society's development. Young people, back to the teenagers, never seem to miss all the pop culture and advertisement that surrounds them. It has just become another part of their daily life. Pop culture has been and still is often seen as entertainment enjoyed by society's lower class members. But what is considered pop culture still changes over time.
Yep.
As society's pop culture is influenced by several social aspects such as music, movies, technology, everyday songs and feels and current ideas of drinking, smoking, clubbing, as well as the use of offensive language. These are heard and seen by society's youth who then believe it is appropriate to get intoxicated.
That's so true.
Because
it's promoted everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere, especially in rap music.
Especially, and that kind of desensitizes it to us, because if we're constantly being my favorite rapper, or on the movie it says it's okay to smoke a cigarette, drink a bunch of 40 ounces, smoke weed, do
Yep.
drugs, must be okay.
Pour lean.
If
That's all you
yeah,
hear.
if a lot of people find it okay, I guess it is okay.
Yep.
And nowadays, social media is a way to be updated with these latest trends.
Yeah, that's true.
Alcohol companies are gradually using Facebook and other social media companies to convince young teens and people in general to buy and drink their goods.
Yep.
Since younger and younger people have access to the social media, there's no way a parent can keep track of everything that they're looking at.
Right. That's so true.
And most of the songs heard on the radio talk about sex and drugs and violence. Drugs were present in nearly 50% of MTV music videos back in the day.
That's more than, well, that's half.
That's half. It's half people.
Damn.
And this information was posted by the American Academic of Pediatrics. And also, pop culture can be represented well at the Teen Choice of the Awards.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
it. But she came up with some pretty good
She has
stuff.
some good points.
Because that is so true. Everything she
Yeah.
said was so true.
Because I remember even when I was like 12 years old, I listened to a lot of Biggie, and think of how many times she's talked about, and even the Wu-Tang Clans, just smoking blunts. I don't know what a blunt was, but I'm like, it must be pretty cool.
Right?
Yeah.
That is so true. That is so true. You have to limit what your kid is getting into as far as social media, watching TV, all of that, because there's big influential ideas there.
Yeah.
That's probably wasn't even on their mind until they seen that music video talking about smoking weed, pouring up lean, popping pills,
Yeah. And overall, the whole point of the podcast was to look at how both the average Joe, right, someone who has little to no influence, and people such as Big Pharma, who has all the influence, how they affect each other in terms of alcohol and drugs. People need it. Some people, provide absurd prices or ways to get it. So no matter what they get, they have to have it. Or pharmaceutical companies or, alcoholic companies, what have you, target these people who are in rough states, such as addicts and abusers. But let's leave it off as this. Let's leave it off with some good questions. Maybe you can ask yourself while you're
Okay,
listening.
what's up? Ask me some questions then.
I say, why do institutions have a campaign to push the use of drugs and alcohol? What's their end goal? We could look at is it simply money?
Oh, I see what you mean now. Why are you trying to push commercials and stuff and advertise these drugs if they're just for you if you're sick or if you have a problem? Why do you have to advertise it?
Exactly.
I get what you're saying.
And why is that some of these drugs are okay for people to use while others are looked down upon, such as cocaine versus Adderall, when they're the same they're the same thing. Yeah.
They're both uppers. They're both adrenaline rushes. They're the same thing. What is it? Adderall is just pill form.
Yeah.
That's it. That's crazy. I never thought about that. So are those the two questions we're going to leave them with? Or
Those are questions. Do you have any other questions to add?
I don't have anything to add. This
Okay.
was very fun, though.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could get maybe one or two in.
Okay.
What about who exactly are the targets for the use of alcohol and drugs?
I feel like they target the people that's using them and the upcoming generation that might wants to use them.
wants to use it.
That's why I feel like that's why they do it on social media or put it in songs or they advertise it the way that they do. So the people that's listening to it, which is mainly younger people and younger people.
Yeah.
Everybody listens to music, but I'm saying the younger people are gonna mostly be the ones that's trying to do what the lyrics are saying.
Yeah.
I keep on saying, popping pills, pouring lean, smoking weed.
Well, we'll leave you at that, audience. Thank you for listening. This has been Chantel and Damien on alcohol and drugs, and catch you next time.
All right.